Part 6. Supposedly, 13th century scholar Thomas Aquinas added the notion of conscientia, comprised of mistake-prone human reason, solving the problem with synderesis alone. Seemingly, Thomas Aquinas concluded that if only human reason were perfect, bad behavior would not exist. And we now know that many intelligent people have no conscience whatsoever, allegedly exposing the continued ignorance of theologians. 20th century physician and atheist Sigmund Freud originated the concept of a superego, replacing most aspects of the theological notion of conscience. Later, 21st century researchers noted that environmental factors are more complex than Freud's limited superego. Other researchers developed the parallel idea that the gene pool and events in the womb also affected subsequent human behavior. So now, supposedly, human behavior is fully understood by nature, biological factors, and nurture environmental factors, while the early church's notion of good versus evil is supposedly obsolete. Not so fast! First, the church's understanding has been misrepresented and misconstrued. They never said their notion of synderesis excluded other factors. For example, you inform a young person that by studying hard you will get good grades. We don't try to falsify that statement by saying that if someone is mentally handicapped, studying hard won't help, or if someone gets hit by a truck, their studying would be a waste of time. Rather, we understand the point of what was being said. Apparently, early churchmen attempted to counteract the tendency of people to make excuses for their behavior instead of trying to write scientific textbooks. Hyperbole, exaggeration for emphasis, is fairly common. Actually, we know that ancient theologians fully understood human behavior. From the 10th century BC, train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. Proverbs 22:6. This example emphasizes the environmental factor of parental guidance. Then Proverbs 22:24-25 warns against bad influences in one's environment. Make no friendship with an angry man, and so on, how that goes. Thirdly, 2 Timothy 2:15, 1st century AD, declares, study to show thyself approved, the opposite of automatic knowledge or conscience. As for the conscienceless, they were, or those without conscience, they were known long ago. Timothy 4:1-2 seemingly describes sociopaths whose conscience was so-called seared with a hot iron. However, the blame was on the individual for either deadening their own conscience or failing to seek enlightenment. Biological factors were downplayed because you cannot change your own biology. However, pregnant women stayed at home and were discouraged from excessive alcohol use, smoking, and other harms, which helped protect the baby. Decrees to segregate the population, for example, Exodus 33:16, we shall be separated from all the people that are upon the face of the earth, would have ensured a pure gene pool. These teachings predated Jerome and Augustine. In conclusion, the early church had a tripartite version of humanity, consisting of nature, nurture, and the battle between good and evil, while modern psychology lacks understanding. Besides, Christians were admonished not to judge the exact degree of personal culpability, but rather acquiesce to God's judgment of exact degrees of righteousness or evil at the world's end. Besides Christianity's influence, humanity's shift from barbarianism to civilization can be explained through technological advancements, not because ancient people lacked psychotherapy sessions. See chapter 20 in my book. Butting heads yet again. To my dismay, modern theologians have declared that psychoanalysis is harmonious with and complementary to Christianity. To keep this simple, I'll mention one particular theologian and respond. The chapter Morality and Psychoanalysis in C.S. Lewis's Mere Christianity lauds psychoanalysis. Here are its inherent problems. First, Mr. Lewis admitted that he didn't know anything about psychoanalysis. He also admitted that the underlying philosophy of psychoanalysis contradicts Christianity, and the analysts contradict each other. Besides, Mr. Lewis declared that homosexuality is a mental illness, the position that psychoanalysts took in his day. This supposition has been completely discredited. He also declared that psychoanalysis would be indispensable to cure such neuroses as the pathological horror of cats. Yet even today, phobias of relatively innocuous subjects such as cats, clowns, and beetles are regulated to comical movies and absent in real life. This is like a mouse causing Curly from the Three Stooges to have a psychotic episode and feeding Curly cheese cured him. Besides, Mr. Lewis had no first-hand experience with the psych professions as I have. Finally, he was at a disadvantage by writing in the 1940s, while I write in the computer age and read in the computer age. Subsequent editions of C.S. Lewis's otherwise excellent book should exclude this annotated chapter. A psychiatrist babbled, a generation ago, psychiatrists easily committed people as a danger to themselves or others instead of facing legal constraints that often prohibit involuntary commitment today. The increase in homelessness and random violence is a consequence. This increase cannot be because of destitution, since poverty has declined, and most homeless people are mentally ill. Yet we let them die for freedom's sake. And though people can sense when someone is mentally ill and dangerous, we allow them to kill before being forcibly treated. And random mass murder in America is 3 times more common than a generation ago, when gun laws were weaker and involuntary commitment laws were stronger. Not so fast. However, and there, because of these howevers. However, there are different measures of poverty, not just one. With expensive housing and housing shortages, people are poorer in that sense. Today, many people should be in prison instead of early release into the streets. There's a shortage of group homes for handicapped adults, and people today want their independence instead of living with parents or roommates to split the bills. Violence-soaked entertainment can be blamed for shooting sprees and other unusual violence. And today there are a lot more broken homes and social isolation. And although gun laws are stronger, there are a lot more guns now. Also, Christian values in general have been disappearing over the last generation. That's 9 reasons right there. And is letting people die in a mental institution without their freedom the solution to letting people die in the street with their freedom? Also, people cannot sense when someone is dangerously disturbed unless they make overt threats, or you could see them making homemade bombs or something like that. No word association or ink blot tests, combination of likes or dislikes, analysis of facial expressions and physical characteristics, brain scans, or even combining all these techniques proves anything. See chapter 25, Communication Fails, in my book, which further examines the idea of people trying to read and analyze others. And consider that the brain of notorious serial killer John Wayne Gacy was removed and analyzed after his death. It was completely normal. Besides, suicide rates of psychiatrists and psychologists often exceed those of average people. Since they can't even solve their own problems, they should be completely discredited and utterly repudiated. Summary: some have been harmed by religion to become atheists. But psych philosophy regularly harms people, while practitioners remain largely unquestioned. Besides, psych philosophy is not science. It's no more scientific than astrology. It's the supreme insult, a stranger telling me how to operate my own brain. Since I've been offended by psych philosophy, I've become an witch doctor. Though Christianity has been twisted, causing misery, Christianity started with the right foundation. When correctly applied, Christianity betters the world. That sharply contrasts with psych philosophy, which was founded on a muddled, contradictory mess, creates misery, and it invariably takes people's money. So-called psychoanalysis is just a fancy word for judgmentalism. You could call it superfragilistic expialidocious, and it would still be a form of unrighteous judging and declaring others to be freaks. What mentally troubled people need most is love and understanding, sometimes discipline, and sometimes compassion. What most mentally troubled people are disturbed because they are not loved or understood to begin with. Society causes its own problems. The best thing we can do to assuage others' unfortunate circumstances is to love them dearly, treating them the same way we'd want to be treated, not condemning them, capturing them, zapping them with electricity, or drugging them without cause. These principles, though simple, require extraordinary effort. The bottom line is, we can accept those who are difficult. Love is the answer. Take care.